Hello YouTube. I was online earlier today and I wanted to read more up about silver and the history of it. And yeah, so I typed in silver cycles economics, and the first thing you'll come across is a paper or an essay pretty much written by two professors, a professor of economics and a professor of international studies. And the professor of economics, his name is Dr. Dennis O. Flynn, and apparently he wrote this paper around 2002 or earlier, because that's when he published it, or according to the paper, that is. And he talks about how, or writes about how silver was used in China, or monetarily, around 1600s and all the way up to like the 1800s. And so I was reading about it and how silver was used as a monetary exchange. And yeah, it tells you the exchange ratios, and I could read a couple of lines of the essay. And yeah, how pretty much most of the silver that was found or mined eventually around the world would end up in China, because that's where most of the silver was being traded to, because apparently China was giving the highest premium of gold to silver ratio. And people are wondering when or where was this 1 to 6 ratio, 6 silver for 1 piece of gold. And that was in China. That was in a during a time when China valued silver more than any other country in the world. And I'll look for, it was during a time when, according to the essay on page 10 of, I'm gonna put the link of the website of the PDF file, and on this channel, so you'll be able to find it. But yeah, apparently, according to the essay, I'm going to read it. China contained a larger proportion of the world's population in the 16th century than it does today, roughly 20% today versus 25% plus then. So during the 16th century, China had a greater percentage of the world's population than it did according to today. Whereas, like, the largest cities in Western Europe, such as London and Paris, contain roughly 200 inhabitants each. 200,000, 200,000 inhabitants each, with huge urban centers, vast, vast lands. China had millions of people in their, in certain cities such as Beijing or Nanjing. And yeah, and the reason why silver was flowing into China, according to the essay, was that nobody can compete with Asian produces of spices, silks, and ceramics. And in the 18th century, tea, all highly prized commodities over the world. So tea, I wonder why tea was such a highly prized commodity during that time, because I don't know, now it's oil, but then it was tea. Well, I don't know why tea was so highly prized during that time. If someone could tell me why, or maybe it's because the British and they love drinking tea. That's pretty interesting stuff, in my opinion. Why silver was highly valued during the 16th century. And some other stuff that was interesting. Yeah, on the page 11 of that essay, it also says, like, China contain at least a quarter of the world's population. A quarter? Really? Because I don't know. Today, I think in 2011, China is what, 1/6 of the world's population? And during that time, it's 1/4 the population. So let's see, it says, as already noted, China contains at least a quarter of the world's population in huge cities. Example given, 1 million people in Nanjing and 660,000 in Beijing. Wow, that's quite a number in the 16th century, I would say. And so the conversion of China's monetary and fiscal systems to silver base had a momentous impact. Moreover, because of the China's extensive tributary system, domestic silverization created a ripple effect reaching far beyond Chinese borders. Wow, so they really used this as money in the 16th century in China, and if you want to buy the stuff that the Europeans wanted so much, which were the spices, the ceramics, and the tea, I guess you have to use silver. And on the 12th page of the essay, which I found was very interesting, the Chinese conversion to silver caused the market value of the white metal to soar far higher in China than in America, Japan, Europe, and elsewhere in the world. Regionally, divergent bimetric ratios provided a clear indicator of the inflated value of silver in China than the rest of the world. In the early 16th century, the gold to silver ratio in China stood at 1:6, while in contrast, the gold to silver ratio hovered around 1:12 in Europe, 1:10 in Persia, and 1:8 in India. So that's why silver was such a highly demanded, and that the ratio to silver to gold was so low during that time, because silver was, had a higher premium to gold in China, and that's why there was a 1:6 ratio, in history. And I think if things happen the same, which it seems very similar today, that the Chinese want this stuff so they could, build more electronics, right? To have more phones, to live the Western lifestyle. So that could happen again in history, where all the silver would eventually, head towards China, and it'll increase the value of this towards the premium of gold. I think that could happen. I'm not so sure, but during that time it was a different time period, and this was used as money more than it was used industrially. And also China was also 1/4 the world's population, whereas now it's only 1/6. And also another difference would be, I guess, that during that time, there was also a lot of discoveries of mines. You would say, like, they discovered mines in America and Mexico, where they were digging up more silver, and whereas now they're not finding as much silver. So I don't know how that would affect the demand and the ratio to gold to silver. But yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. But I found this article and I was reading about it. I also found another article written by the same professor and the same two professors. And I think if you would like to read them, I will list them down there. And I thought this was an interesting find. And if you read it yourself, you'll probably think it's pretty interesting. I don't know how accurate this information is, but it was written by two accredited professors with PhDs, and this was written around 2002. So yeah, so you could check it out and find out for yourself. But I hope this information helps you out, and you'll find out a little more about silver and why the ratios change, and how demand can affect the price and the ratio of gold to silver. Alright, thank you. Have a good night and a good weekend.